Throughout history, mysterious books and writings have caused panic and controversy. Some believe that in his book, the prophecies of Nostradamus predicted the rise of Hitler, the 9/11 attacks, and the end of the world. But there's another mysterious book that many believe contains other cataclysmic predictions. Its dark secrets are yet to be revealed. Historians, linguists, and code breakers are attempting to decipher its meaning. What will they reveal? Experts worldwide are obsessed by this item, MS408, of the rare book and manuscript library at Yale University, its current home.
First impression was that it's extraordinarily bizarre, but that it's also oddly familiar. On one level, it looks like something you've seen before, but the more you look at it, the more you realize that it's really like nothing you've seen before. So it only gradually do you become aware that this isn't a normal kind of manuscript at all.
This mysterious book is better known as the VOYNICH Manuscript. It was discovered in 1912 by rare book dealer Wilfrid Voynich in a Jesuit library near Rome. Its author has never been revealed. Nearly 100 years later, historians like Professor Nicholas Terpstra are still trying to decipher the manuscript's contents. Unidentifiable plants.
Are these the plants from the Garden of Eden?
Strange astrological symbols.
Is this somehow the astrology of another level of the universe?
And most mysterious of all, pages of text that 100 years later still remain undeciphered.
As you try to read the lettering, you realize that it's completely impossible to decipher. And if we can just break it out, we'll find the answer to everything.
What mysterious secrets does the Voynich manuscript contain? Could there be predictions like those of Nostradamus, prophesizing our doom? To begin, investigators needed to find out when it was written. In 2009, they got a significant clue. Researchers at the University of Arizona carbon dated the parchment. They discovered it might have been produced in the first half of the 15th century. Could this vital piece of evidence reveal the secrets of the Voynich manuscript? Medieval Europe was a continent emerging from the Dark Ages into a new dawn of innovation and discovery.
The early 15th century is a time of extraordinary expansion of people's creativity, curiosity. People were curious about all sorts of things in the world. There's a certain amount of political instability, but there's a lot of economic expansion, and merchants are going to all different parts of the world. There's also a real curiosity about learning, about particularly finding out what the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans knew and trying to take that knowledge and bring it back into contemporary society. So everybody thought that the way to the future lay through the past.
This new era of innovation fueled interest in more controversial beliefs like alchemy and other dark arts. Books were written which contained what many believed were ancient scientific or alchemical techniques. One of the most famous were Giambattista della Porta's Magia Naturalis.
Books of secrets were common at the time. The notion was that the only truths that are really important are the truths that aren't immediately apparent. So that true knowledge is secret knowledge. And the way to get secret knowledge was usually by revelation of some kind. So there's a whole tradition that goes back to the Greeks of books of secrets that explain then the secret knowledge of the universe, the secret connections within the universe, and then the way to probe this, to understand it, and normally then to try to work with it. So the whole idea of a book of secrets is that it's like a technical manual for controlling the powers of the universe.
But for a time, these ancient truths were heresy. To avoid persecution, many authors would find ways to disguise sensitive information in their writings.
So it tended to be the kind of things they wanted to hide for political purposes.
One of the most common forms of disguise was to compose in a language few people could read.
What you do find, there's a whole range of languages that people are rediscovering. This is the time period, early 15th century, when people are reacquainting themselves with things like Egyptian hieroglyphics and believe that hieroglyphics are the answer to finding out what true Egyptian knowledge was. This is a time when people are trying to find out what Etruscan looked like, ancient Etruscan. This is a time when people will actually invent languages, and 100 years later you'll find somebody who invents a language from supposedly the language from the ancient biblical times that was spoken by the angels. There's also a real curiosity about learning, about particularly finding out what the ancient Greeks and the ancient Romans knew and trying to take that knowledge and bring it back into contemporary society. So everybody thought that the way to the future lay through the past. They're looking for ancient knowledge anywhere they can get it. The more ancient, the better.
Is the Voynich manuscript a remnant of an ancient language rediscovered by a 15th century scholar? Stephen Chrysomalis is a linguistics expert.
Throughout history, there must have been tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands, of languages spoken, most of which are now long extinct. The Voynich manuscript is fascinating because it's so close to something that we could decipher and we could read. Many of the letters look like letters in the Roman alphabet, and yet, as soon as you get into it, it falls to pieces.
Linguists call the text found in the Voynich manuscript Voynichese. If it is indeed a language, its complex designs make Voynichese almost impossible to recognize. While it appears to have some familiar characters, what they mean and how they relate to each other has experts baffled.
In most languages, if you look at a page of text, the most common words in that text will be short. So if you were to go to your shelf and pick out a book, I can absolutely tell you with 100% certainty that the common words will be nice short words, the, a, of, it, etc. In the Voynich manuscript, the most common words aren't short words, and that's a mystery. That's one of the reasons why some scholars think that it in fact doesn't represent language at all, because it doesn't have lots and lots of those little short words that we find again and again and again in languages across the world. This is not just about English, but it's in fact a property of human language.
The Voynich manuscript seems as technically sophisticated as a real written language, but incredibly, it bears no resemblance to any other language that we know of. But some historians believe that was the intention, and the Voynich manuscript's unknown author didn't want its secrets revealed, ever. Could the secret knowledge within the Voynich manuscript have been disguised with a code, perhaps a medieval ciphertext?
The simplest type of code is a simple substitution cipher, where you take one letter of the alphabet and replace it with another. So A would be encoded by B, C, D. So while a message encrypted by this cipher might look unintelligible, if you study it closely, you'll start to see patterns. If you're encrypting the English language, for example, E is the most common letter used in the English language, say. So when you look at the encrypted text, you might find that the letter L is the most encrypted letter in the text. So then you would suspect that maybe L represents E.
The problem, as some of the greatest code breakers in history have discovered, is finding those patterns in the Voynich manuscript. By the Second World War, the art of encrypting documents had been nearly perfected by the Germans' Enigma cipher machine. To crack the Enigma's code, Allied codebreakers had to push their technology beyond its limits.
The governments brought together teams of hundreds, if not thousands, of their brightest minds to try to figure out how these ciphers, how these substitutions were working. And in order to break the codes, they had to try thousands and thousands and thousands of different combinations, to the point where they couldn't really be done by hand, and they had to invent machines to break the codes for them. And they started with mechanical machines, and eventually built up to electronic machines.
Aided by Colossus, the world's first electronic programmable computer, the Allies deciphered what was then the most complex code in history. But then, they tried to break the VOYNICH manuscript.
So many of these cryptographers from the UK and the United States and elsewhere who'd broken these extremely difficult ciphers from the 20th century tried to break this 15th century cipher. So why is it that they failed?
Even to the world's best minds, the VOYNICH manuscript seems impenetrable. If it's a code, no one can break it. If it's a language, no one can understand it. Everything seen on its pages is a mystery. Gordon Rugg is a VOYNICH expert. He believes he might have the answer. He feels the mystery is not what we can see in the manuscript, but what we can't.
Even the most perfectionist modern calligraphers still make some mistakes. They have to erase those mistakes, scratch the parchment clean, and then write the correct text. There's no evidence of that happening in the VOYNICH manuscript. So the strong implication is that the content didn't matter. The person was just writing gibberish and they knew it.
But the perfection found in the VOYNICH manuscript could reveal that it's a fake. Professor Gordon Rugg believes he has the answer.
The simplest explanation for the VOYNICH manuscript is that it's a hoax.
It's a brilliant hoax. It's an amazing hoax.
A hoax that lasts for 500 years.
Could the VOYNICH manuscript be a perfect crime created by a medieval prankster? To investigate, experts would need to go back to the 15th century. Works like those of Nostradamus were hugely successful when they were first published. The educated classes revered any book that promised the secrets of the universe.
There would be a big market for something like this, precisely because it's so strange and rare and because it's so secret. For a Renaissance banker, owning a manuscript was like owning a Van Gogh to a modern-day Wall Street banker. It shows that you're about more than money. You know what culture is, and you're a cultured, intelligent individual. So it's a mark of status. It's a mark of conspicuous consumption.
Even if there was a financial incentive to create the manuscript, how could its author make it appear as technically consistent as real language?
Most people had previously assumed that to create something the size of the VOYNICH manuscript as meaningless gibberish would take decades. If you try making up gibberish out of your head, it's surprisingly difficult. You start repeating yourself over and over again. That would be easily detectable. There are cases of people doing things like automatic writing, but again, the record doesn't match what we see in the VOYNICH manuscript. There are things that you can do like randomly combining characters, but we know the combinations are not random. So all of the plausible, familiar ways of generating meaningless gibberish produce output which is visibly different from what you see in the VOYNICH manuscript.
But Professor Rugg has an incredible new theory. Creating the manuscript was actually easy, and today he's going to put his theory to the test.
I think that what we'll see today is large quantities of text coming out, text which has got similar characteristics to VOYNICHese in different ways. I think another thing we'll see today is how quickly text can be produced using this method, whether or not it would be feasible to use this method to produce a meaningless hoax for profit.
Gordon hopes his experiment will reveal how the author created an indecipherable manuscript quickly and easily. To begin, Gordon is using 3 world-class calligraphers. Working on a table consisting of 600 blank squares, the calligraphers copy random syllables from the VOYNICH manuscript into the squares, leaving some of them blank. 3 squares are then cut in random positions from heavy cardboard called a grill. The grill is then placed anywhere on the table. This simple technique reveals a VOYNICHese word. Finally, the word is copied onto a page of manuscript. The grill slides to the right and it's repeated. Using this method, the entire VOYNICH manuscript could be created in weeks.
These people have produced text that looks like Voynichese. They've produced it fast. At this speed, you'd be able to produce the entire manuscript in a matter of weeks with a team like this. So I think this shows that my method's certainly feasible.
The experiment suggests that the author could have created the Voynich manuscript quickly and out of greed. But until the truth is revealed, for many, the mystery remains.
It's so close to what we know, and yet it's so far from what we can decipher. So something that lies just outside our grasp. We need to find out what's in there because it is so intriguing.
What the fuck?